Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your host, Matt and Jeff, and today we're joined by Nicole Mericle, who is a ATP-sponsored Spartan Athlete Extreme for these games. So it's really great to be working with you on that. And we wanted to have you on the podcast to talk a little bit about you being a professional athlete and your involvement with Spartan and life as you know it. And we've got Benji with you as well too, which is so fantastic because I've been eating a little bit of dog love. So he's come along for the podcast as well too.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so tell us, how did you get involved in, or how did you transition to become a professional athlete? And when did this happen? And I know that you had a career before this, but I know for a lot of people that are out there, it's like the lifestyle of a professional athlete, how does it all come together?
I feel like this is going to be a long answer.
Yeah, fine. We got time.
So I have run my whole life. I went to college on athletic scholarship, and I ran cross country and track there. I went to a school, Rice University in Houston, which is known for its academics. And so I was always like very, very focused on academics, even though I was also very interested in athletics, and that's like what got me to college, and that was like a big passion of mine. But I was always definitely very focused on having a career as well, outside of running, which was partly because I didn't know that being a professional athlete was feasible.
Right. Yeah.
So I ran in college and I loved it. And I always had ambitions of going into medicine in some way. And so I toyed with going to medical school at first. And then I kind of like took a step back after college. I moved to Boulder. I got into rock climbing.
That's in Colorado. So
in Colorado.
In altitude as well,
yes.
too, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So was that done because you loved Boulder, or was that done because you wanted to train at altitude?
That was partly because I had been in Boulder for a couple summers during college, and I fell in love with the mountains. I started rock climbing there, and that was an obvious second passion of mine. I still loved running, but when I found rock climbing, I was like, oh my gosh, like if I had been able to do this when I was little, I think this would have been my thing.
So you loved it?
Wow. Oh, yeah.
See, I'm terrified of heights, man. I get up on there and it's like I start clamming up and freezing up. It's like, yeah. So it's in your blood.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think it was something that even my parents, like they recognized when I was little, but we lived in Houston, and there's not even like a hill in Houston.
Yeah, right.
It's so flat, and there's no rocks to climb. There was maybe one gym that was like an hour and a half away, so it just like wasn't really an option when I was little.
Running.
Yeah,
so
I was a runner.
And functional fitness would have been the only other thing really you could have done, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. I was into karate for a little bit. Yeah. I thought that was fun, but but running I definitely excelled at.
More of a runner than a fighter.
Yeah, totally.
You got to be good at one, right?
Oh yeah, I played soccer for a while when I was little, up until like high school, and
you're one of those people that were just good. Like you were good at all those sports?
Kind of like all athletics come pretty easily to me.
Yeah.
But there were clear things that I was better at. Like in soccer, I could outrun everybody, but if it became like a head to head, like we were up against each other, like I was a little bit smaller than everyone, and I just like couldn't really hold my own. I got injured a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was the transition then? So you did the running, the cross country, the study. Then what?
Yeah. So then I took up rock climbing. I actually had a couple injuries. I tore my labrums in my hip, and actually both sides.
How'd you do that at the same time?
One of them was an overuse injury, and the other one was kind of like a one-time traumatic. Basically, I was doing like a high kick, essentially.
Wow.
Obviously
in karate, not in the run.
Well, yeah.
She's
it was in climbing.
Right.
And I was trying to throw my foot up onto a hold, which is something like I would never do now. It was just, I was like very new to climbing, and I was just like determined to do this climb in any way. And it came at the cost of my inflexible running hips.
Yeah, wow.
So I injured one that way, and that actually recovered fine. It took a while, but it did recover completely. But my other hip, when I tore that labrum, I was pretty much out of running for about 3 years.
Right.
And so so I came into trail and Spartan racing because I was kind of forced into it given my injury that completely prevented me from running on the road.
Yeah.
It just like it wasn't possible. My leg would stop working essentially. So so I kind of I found Spartan racing through that injury. And then at the time I was going through school to apply to physician assistant school. And I still have ambitions of doing that. But I got to this point where my whole life I basically have been trying to excel athletically, but then also I've been always in school. Like even, I went to college, graduated, and then since then I've been like taking prereqs here and there. So I'm like always like kind of in school and then like working as well. I worked for a running company for a while. And then I was working as an EMT for a number of years, for 2 years. And so it was just, I'm always like pulled in like a few different directions. And so I came to a point last year where I knew that I wasn't able to work on some weaknesses of mine. And I also was just like I wasn't in the best profession to focus on my athletic career because I worked in an urgent care and I was around sick people all the time.
Yeah.
And when you're stressed physically and like
exposed,
just like and then you're exposed to all these things, it's hard to stay healthy.
Yeah. So you're running and you're doing that kind of for fun and you're entering Spartan races and things. Is that what you were doing? And then what was the point where you went, you know what, I'm not going to study anymore, I'm not going to work conventional, I'm going to become a professional athlete? What did that look like?
So I was always very into the competitive side of things.
Yeah.
So whenever I ran in college, or even when I first did my first Spartan race, like I went into it thinking that I could win.
Yeah.
And I was third in a competitive race.
Wow.
And so so I did well, and I won a little bit of money. And
Can I ask how much that money was? Like
in my first race, I think it was $1,500.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah. And I was like surprised that there was like really like serious competition and
See, the market is so big, especially here in the States as well too. Like there's a lot of professional sports that we just wouldn't have in Australia because there's not the population or the supporter base, if you like, to actually make it viable. So it's really cool when you actually hear people passionate about something and that can actually make a living out of it.
Yeah.
So
It was something-
$1,500 for finishing.
For finishing third.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was first?
And that
was first prize?
I think first was 3,000.
Wow.
Maybe.
See, that's
Yeah.
all, man.
That's good.
Yeah.
And that would have been
And it
just a
was
local
something-
regional one or something, wouldn't it? Too?
That-
It wouldn't
it
have been a
was-
big tournament or anything.
It was a little bit more competitive, but it wasn't one of like the biggest races of the year.
Yeah.
And that was something coming from a running background. There's not a ton of money in at least like the road and the track races that I was doing. That was a lot of money to win. And still, like I have a ton of professional runner friends who are in Boulder. They do marathons. They do like they run the track.
And they just do that for profession as
well. But a lot of them, even though they're very good, they're not able to win as much prize money because it's just not there.
Right.
It's like there's a ton of money in maybe marathons if you're winning them and the big ones like New York.
Yeah.
But unless you're in that like very top percentage, then there's not as much potential to win prize money there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a combination that like this sport, like Spartan does put up good prize money.
Yeah.
And some other races do as well. And then also like it's great to have like financial support from sponsors as well.
Sure.
And then you're not like relying on having to win every race.
Yeah.
And you can like, race fewer times and put more emphasis on certain races.
Great.
So it's kind of a magical combination of things that I felt like I could put my other career on hold, and that it's a time in my life where I'm 31. I'm not going to be able to race forever.
Exactly.
And this is like the time to focus on it.
A friend of mine's son is extremely good at soccer. Like so good he could have actually played for probably local professional. He was even being scouted, I think, internationally as well too. And he's only a young guy. And I appreciate he's got to run his own race, and that means he wanted to become an accountant. And I think, great. I'm 45 and I'm now a soccer tragic, right? And I wish I had discovered soccer, football when I was a lot younger, because I would have played it my entire life. I played rugby instead, had a few injuries and sort of retired because of the injury, the impact of the sport. But it's like, you're 21, you could really play professional football. You can become an accountant after you retire. And obviously that's what you're thinking as well. Do what you can when you can, and then those other things you can pick up your career afterwards. In fact, it's probably really good because a lot of professional athletes, that's all they're focused on. Once they retire, they don't know what to do with themselves. But, you know.
And that's kind of, it's hard. It's hard to make that decision because, you know, running, it did allow me to go and get an education, and that's very valuable. And I definitely wouldn't have wanted to go full force into running right after high school and then not have that education.
Did you get a scholarship because of your running?
I did. So,
and was that a full scholarship? So it paid for all of your, wow, that's amazing.
It was a full scholarship.
Because that's quite a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah. Rice costs like $40,000 to $50,000 a year.
Wow. So
it was worth a lot.
So and you were studying for 4 years?
I actually stayed 5 years because I redshirted a year, so I was able to compete a final fifth year.
What's a redshirt mean?
So in a university, if you are injured for a season, you can choose to sit that season out of competition, and then you can stay an extra year. You can't stay, usually you can't stay more than 5 years unless it's like in a super exceptional case. But you have the ability to not race a season and then come back a fifth year and race.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us about the Spartan thing and sort of where did that come from coming from like doing your distance running and then you thought, oh, I'm going to run a Spartan race. Was it the money that lured you in, or was it because it was something different, or what was it that you thought, yeah, I'm going to give the Spartan a go? Well,
so I have competed my whole life in running, and I had that injury with the hip in 2013, I think. And that really took me out of competition. I wasn't able to run more than like a couple, 2 or 3 miles at a time. And I kept on trying to come back to road and track racing, and it just like wasn't happening. I wasn't able to build up to the same mileage. I wasn't able to do workouts. And so I ended up having to stop running completely. And I had to rest totally. I had to go see like tons of different specialists to see what was actually going on. And I had a lot of incomplete answers. People just said like, oh, like, no, you have nothing wrong with your back. You have nothing wrong with your nerves. Your gait analysis looks good. Like, yes, you have a labral tear in your hip, but like the symptoms that you have are kind of strange, and we don't think surgery is a good option for you. So I came to this point where I walked away from running. I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to be able to race again, and that's going to have to be okay.
How'd that feel?
It felt like I was quitting.
Yeah. And were you okay with that, or was that like, oh my God, part of my life's over? Or?
I thought that part of my life was over. Yeah. I thought like that was like a chapter closed, and you know that. And in some ways, I was like, you know what? It kind of frees me up in some ways. Like my whole life had been like dictated by running. So going on vacations even, I was like, oh, I can't go to this place because I can't run there. And so in some ways, like I kind of enjoyed it for a little bit. Like, oh, I don't have to be so constricted by some things. But I really miss competing. I miss pushing my body that much. And even though I had gotten into rock climbing and I was super passionate about climbing, like pushing my personal boundaries in climbing, I didn't compete in it. And so it wasn't like the same to me. Yeah. So it was just like, it was enough to get like that like physical like output, and have something to work on, but it wasn't the same kind of like race competition kind of setting. And so a friend actually suggested that I try a Spartan race, and at first I just kind of blew him off. I was like, yeah, I don't think that's for me. Because in my mind, I thought it was like this like fun run type of thing where you go with friends and you like dress up in costumes and you roll around in the mud and it's just like this like silly event.
I thought the same when I first heard it. I didn't how wrong I was.
Yeah.
So what is, for those that don't understand what Spartan, what is a Spartan race? Like,
so there is kind of that aspect of it if you want it to be that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. No, totally.
But there's also that.
But there's also
like
there's
yourself.
a really competitive side to it, and you know, there's like very serious athletes that like they train very specifically for these events. They're physically challenging. It's long distances from like 5 to 13 miles long. There's even ultra distances too. And there's challenging obstacles, monkey bars and rope climbs and rigs, which is like a complicated monkey bar system,
Yeah.
essentially, and crawling under barbed wire and
Pretty full on.
the spear throw.
I'm looking behind you, and we're looking up. Is it with the K2? I think they call it, and I can
think
actually
so.
see the course laid out. I don't. For those that are watching on YouTube, you can see it's like, I don't know if the camera gets a good scope of that, but that's, what degrees would you reckon that would be? That's like.
Oh my gosh.
That's like 50. That's like 55,
freaking
60
around here,
degrees.
Jeff.
It's like,
I think we're actually
my
looking at the
Lord.
trail race.
Yeah,
But,
that is
but
full
the
on.
the Spartan course is also that steep.
Yeah.
It is.
It's steep enough that it's a very uncomfortable run.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
should. There's parts that like are more efficient to hike for sure.
But they're all different, aren't they? Is every
Oh, yeah.
race different?
There's
So coming from a runner, which is like you've got to take the environment and the weather and that sort of stuff and your competition into consideration. But how do you prepare for a Spartan race? Do you know what you're walking into or running into?
Well, so that was like a big learning curve for me when
Yeah.
I first started doing Spartan races. I thought I was pretty tough being a cross country runner and like braving like tough conditions, like, you know, sometimes you jump over a log and sometimes you're sometimes it's like, I don't know,
It's
hilly.
just rivers,
Like,
right?
like I was used to hills, not mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though like I trained on the Colorado trails, which
Yeah.
are mountainous, I hadn't really raced on that kind of
You
terrain.
can't prepare for a rig, or I've seen some
Yeah.
crazy pulley-looking actions going on. How do you can't train for that as such. You can't recreate these courses in your own yard.
Yeah, sometimes you can't recreate them exactly.
Yeah.
But for me, I love to run. I love to rock climb. And that actually makes up the majority of my training. And I think it prepares me really well.
Yep.
The one big thing that I was missing initially was training for the heavy carries,
Yeah, okay.
which was, the strength aspects, especially when we had the double sandbag carry, which would be like two 40-pound sandbags.
Yeah, wow.
Or two 30-pound sandbags sometimes.
Because I mean, you're
Yeah.
not massive. You're tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I can notice the guns. I'm
Only-
noticing the veins
Yeah.
popping out of the guns there. So, like, I can tell that.
Yeah.
Obviously, a long distance runner, you've actually got some muscle about you as well too, right? So,
yeah, I
Have
mean,
you physically changed much then, being the Spartan?
a little bit. I
Yeah.
think I probably look a lot different, but
Yeah.
in terms of, like, when I was running in college, I was around like 105 pounds.
Yeah.
But like my legs look the same. Like
Okay.
they're the same. I have put on some like upper body mass, so now I'm a little bit more like 110 to 115.
Yeah.
So it's not like a ton more
no,
muscle
you're not
mass.
like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No,
but
but-
you can tell. And do you think your
Yeah.
body fat percentage is lower now than when you were doing your
It
long distance
probably
running?
is.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just-
because you look kind of shredded's probably too
Yeah.
strong a word, but you look really lean. You know, so yeah,
Yeah, I
defined.
think-
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think most of it is like in my upper body that, and a lot of it came from rock climbing, I think.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then some from like the added like lifting that I'm doing too.
So do you do
But-
conventional lifts like, deadlift or sort of bent over rows, that sort of stuff? Is that the sort of thing that you've put into, or do you just continue doing functional lifts like rock climbing and stuff like that?
I do a lot of rock climbing. And then I recently have added in more like kettlebell training, and some barbell things as well. Like I'll do some squats with a barbell. I don't do a lot of deadlifting. I definitely really enjoy the kettlebells.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So any particular moves like the get up, that sort of stuff, or are you doing
like
swings?
get ups,
or?
swings, kettlebell snatches,
Yeah.
and like push press and cleans, things
Yeah.
like that.
Do you
I don't
enjoy
know.
it, like the kettlebell workouts?
I do, yeah.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they involve a lot of core, right?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really helped me just to be a lot more like coordinated.
Yes.
Like it just, especially like single arm movements.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it really like engages everything in a way that you can't get the same benefit from maybe doing like barbells
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think it involves the central nervous system as well too, which
Yeah.
there's a lot of benefit I understand around that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
So have you ever done CrossFit, and how would you describe to people that aren't sure about the Spartan race how it differs from CrossFit?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever done an actual CrossFit workout.
Right.
I've done probably things pretty similar.
Yeah.
I'm not sure though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have a lot of CrossFit friends. I think I have a pretty good understanding of it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a much more endurance sport than CrossFit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's definitely more predictable. Like at least if you're comparing like the CrossFit Games to the Spartan World Championships.
Yeah.
Like we know the obstacles. We know the terrain. Like we definitely know what we're getting. Whereas CrossFit, like that the whole thing is right. Like, like you don't know.
One of our sponsored athletes, he's in his wheelhouse. It was really fortunate because they had elimination this year, and it was kind of like he was really good at the endurance work and sort of and more of the running and that sort of stuff and the paddle boards and that, and then like that, and he finished 5th in the world, which is awesome, you know. Wow. So, but that's it. It would completely throw people off track. Whereas you're saying this is a little bit more sort of, you know, that you're going to be doing a lot more runs. You know, you're going to be doing a lot more hill climbs and that sort of stuff, and that's relatively a bit more predictable.
A bit more, yeah. I mean, coming from being a track and cross country runner, I found them to be super unpredictable.
Sure.
I mean, even knowing the obstacles, I would go into a race and I'd be like, man, I feel super fit. Like I know that I'm fit in my running, and I had like a bunch of grip strength from climbing, but I would go into these races and then I would get destroyed by the terrain because we would be bushwhacking through a forest, and then we'd have to carry these double sandbags up like a super steep ski hill.
Right.
And it was just, I just didn't expect that at all.
Yeah.
And then there would be like a race the next weekend, which would be pretty flat and, you know, maybe like not have a double carry in it.
So every weekend, so you were competing every weekend in Spartan?
This year I've competed a lot. This year I've competed about 25 times maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe every 1.5 weeks, effectively sometimes it's twice, you know, and then, so, and is there prize money at every event?
The ones that I've competed at, there have been prize money at everyone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
To varying degrees. Like the normal Spartan races, unless it's like a U.S. national series, they have like a standard $500 for the win at each of those. Yeah. And then there's more in the U.S. National Series races.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of an athlete that goes, I like the sound of this, like what sort of income, and notwithstanding sponsorship, because obviously sponsorship helps a little bit as well too, right? I mean, if you're podium, you know, getting on the podium, you know, on most of the events, and you can hold up to train, you know, to competing in, say, 40 events in a year, I mean, what sort of prize money could you hope to earn if you're sort of in that sort of...
That's a hard question. I mean, I'm not making a lot of money.
Sure. Yeah.
But
you're getting to live the dream, right? I mean, travel around.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Sort of compete.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's enough to finance the, like, focusing on this sport and being able to travel and train and compete and go on rock climbing trips and tons of fun things.
We got here.
Amazing is this Spartan community.
Oh, it's so amazing.
It's a very unique vibe, isn't it? There's a lot of... really nice people. Probably the best way to describe it. That's why I said nice twice.
Anyone you want to take out? Like anyone you don't like?
Hey,
anyone
are you
that's
a team player? Like, do you do it as part of a team sort of stuff, or you always been a solo sort of sports person? Do you?
Well, I do solo sports in terms of like running is seen as a solo sport, but I'm used to being on a team. Yeah. So I think actually people often comment on how like close the women are. Yeah. Who like we competed against each other every, like, you know, not every weekend, but like it's the same group of girls, a group of women, like consistently. Like how do we like, you know, get along so well?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you get along?
Let's get some of the dirt.
When we're like we are competing for like prize money, and
do you get along well? Like,
but
is
we
there
do,
a friendship?
and I think it's probably easy for me because I've been on a team where like you're running to do your best, but then you're also if like the girl next to you is running well, like they're pushing you to run well, and there's also there was also always a team aspect in cross country at least and in track. And so it's like, it's pretty natural for me to have that kind of sense of like, oh, me and Lindsay are pushing each other, and it's like, it's going to benefit both of us. Even though like at the end of the race, like maybe she gets me.
So is she like, your main competition?
This year it's been, for the most part, me and Lindsay back and forth.
Yeah. And at the end of the year, and excuse my ignorance, if you tally the most amount of points, do you get crowned as the champion? And does that come with prize money as well too?
With the U.S. National Series,
yes.
It does. Yeah. So we had like a 5-race series, and I won the first 2 races.
Yes.
And then Lindsay won the second 2.
Boom.
And so it was really like, the last one was really exciting because of that.
Yeah.
And Lindsay won that one, so
Yeah.
she won the overall series. And then the last race we had was in West Virginia, and me and Lindsay actually, it was a 13-mile race, and for 12 miles, we were probably within 10, 20 seconds of each other the entire time.
Wow.
And we kind of like flip-flopped a little bit. I led the first 6 miles, then she took over for a couple, and then I led a little bit. And so it was really exciting, especially that one.
Yeah.
And then my calves kind of failed me. I got very crampy calves,
Right.
which I think was just,
those
that's
hits.
just when you push yourself. Yeah. You push yourself that much, that's just what failed on me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So
Yeah.
in terms then of the lifestyle, and for people listening to this, I mean, as I said, when we got here, this is breathtaking. It's absolutely beautiful, just the mountain ranges. I mean, even coming in through Lake Tahoe. I mean, Spartan chooses some pretty beautiful places to be able to, and you're traveling all over the country, and also you're going internationally as well too, to Europe as well too. Is that for
Yes.
holidays, or are you going to be doing some events there as well?
I'll be doing some races in England and one in Greece, and then likely one in Germany as well.
Wow.
And then
That's
I'll be
great.
They're
doing
all
a
going to
couple.
be so different.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
you go
so
from Lake
different.
Tahoe
Yeah.
to England and then Greece. I can imagine every one of them's going to be totally different.
Yeah, in England it's going to be pretty cold and rainy,
Yeah,
and
probably
it's actually pretty
boggy and
flat.
all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little
Yeah.
swampy.
Yeah.
And then the
Greeks
the
or
race
those-
in Greece, it's a little bit mountainous. It's
Yeah.
not crazy, but we run through this river for a mile.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And that one's a fun one. It's the trifecta championships, and
Yeah.
so we run 3 races over 1 weekend.
Yep.
So there's this element of how well can you recover between each race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in wrapping up, because unfortunately we're running
Yeah.
out of time, but do you have a blog? Do you do any casting?
How do we follow you?
Yeah. How do we follow? How do the
follow
fans
this?
follow you?
I'm working on a website right now, which should be out pretty soon. But and I'll hopefully have a blog attached to that for this 2.5 Europe trip that I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing. But most of what I do is just through Instagram.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how can they follow you? What's your handle?
It's Nicole Nickel DM.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
Awesome.
fine.
Yeah, so we'll be able to follow you through, and we'll share all that sort of stuff anyway, so everyone
Awesome.
can cheer you on.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the ATP tribe get behind each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just quickly as well too, and it's a shame of me not to mention this, but
Yeah.
are you using any products at the moment? Which are the ones that you're getting the most benefit from? What do you find that you can't live without in terms of your preparation, either food or drinks or supplementation? Is there anything that sort of is a go-to for you?
Yeah, so I have a lot of food allergies, and I do have trouble with just having a good stomach.
Yeah.
And so I find that the gut right is very helpful
Yeah.
in regulating that.
Yeah.
And then also it's so convenient to have the no whey protein with me.
Yeah.
I'm living in a van right now, and so and I have a fridge and I have a lot of normal amenities, but it's nice to be able to get done with a run and just throw the no whey protein into a mango smoothie mix, and and it's yummy, and
I love about the no whey is that it's so easy on the tummy, right? I mean, especially if you've got issues with that, without any lactose or no bloating, no distension. So I'm glad that you're getting.
And
good.
normally I just didn't have any options for protein,
No.
just because I can't have any dairy, I can't have
Yeah.
any soy, I
Yeah.
can't have a lot of things that protein supplements are made from.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So it's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, thanks so much for coming in. I know that you've probably got a few people. You might have some more competition now, right? You know that you might be making some more competition for yourself. After
Oh
you-
yeah.
living-
I'm making this sound appealing. Too appealing.
Sounds like Jeff wants to join. He's
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to work out whether
Absolutely.
it was economically
Shave the
feasible
legs.
for him.
yeah. No, I probably couldn't. I'm just not that tough. But look, thanks heaps for coming on, Nicole. And we'll stay vested, and hopefully we'll hear some good results on Sunday.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks heaps. Cheers.
Great. Thank you.
And thanks, guys, for listening. And we'll be back with more podcasts from Lake Tahoe soon.